Dear viewers, wherever you are, hello and welcome to this new episode of your program, Spectra. This is part two of our discussion about hypnotherapy. We talked about the facts and the myth of hypnotherapy and the pivotal role it plays in healing, mental and psychological healing, and dealing with trauma. Today we'll delve deeper and see how does hypnotherapy help people heal their wounds, and we'll try to understand what these wounds are exactly. Where do they start and when? I'm really delighted to be accompanied again by the clinical hypnotist for post traumatic stress disorder, Dua Ali. Dua, hello and welcome once again to the program.
Hi, Muhammad. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
Absolutely, pleasure is all mine. And Dua, like last time we talked about relationships and like how can traumas affect your relationships with people, with friends, with a spouse. Also, we talked about how it can affect you on the professional level. Um, so let's talk about traumas that start at your inception, at your infancy. And how can this cause permanent problems with intimacy or attachment? So some people might have problems with attachment, either like they might have extra attachment needs, or they might have some form of a phobia towards attachment. To what extent does childhood trauma affect that?
It affects it on a deep level. We talked last time about the attachment theory and that people have four different, or that studies showed that people have four different attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful avoidant. And secure is pretty straightforward. Those are people who are we can call them emotionally mature. They are comfortable with being vulnerable in relationships. They are there to tend for their partner's needs, and they also know how to express their needs safely, while people who have insecure attachment styles, which is the other three, whether anxious, avoidant, or fearful avoidant, they tend to struggle in relationships more. The reason is that each of them has wounds from childhood, and they usually stem from early childhood. So, for example, people with avoidant attachment style, they most probably had a parent or both parents who were distant, cold, and they didn't tend to their needs. So the children, or they grow up into adults who have fear of vulnerability or fear of intimacy. They have a rejection wound. They tend to avoid intimacy and emotional closeness as much as possible, and they tend to keep their people with avoidant attachment style tend to keep like their partner at an arm's length.
Mhm.
So in their mind, they feel like, okay, everybody leaves, so I have to protect myself. I can't depend on anyone but myself. I can't trust anyone but myself. So the more emotionally close I become, or the more emotionally vulnerable I become, the more I will get hurt and disappointed. So I better avoid it.
So they'd always try to shield themselves. They'd always
Exactly.
try to shield themselves. Okay.
Exactly, exactly. So, and they do have trust issues. So, and I'll give an example. So, I have a friend of mine who disclosed to me that he was dating a girl who was seemed to be so kind and loving and
Mhm.
warm, and then to the point that he felt that it was too good to be true,
Hmm.
and he ended the relationship. And then he went on to attract another girl with an anxious attachment style.
Hmm.
And he started to grow an awareness that he himself has an avoidant attachment style. And this is the thing with people who have anxious and avoidant attachment styles. They tend to attract each other and they get engaged in that forever anxious avoidant dance until one of them or both hopefully grow self-awareness to the wound they're struggling with.
And
People who
I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but is it always like an a reaction equal in magnitude but opposite in direction? Or is it always, or does it always go hand in hand? So, like, if I was neglected, I would like to keep this pattern, or if I was neglected, no, I'd always look for more attachment.
So it again, it depends. It depends on the wound. So as if you remember the study that I talked about last time, the strange
Yes.
situation study or the strange situation test, where children reacted differently. So everyone reacts differently. So people can be exposed, or even children or siblings can have the same parents and they can be treated the same ways, but each of them grows a different wound or reacts differently to the trauma. Uh, People who have but the thing is, like, each one of them has different style of parents too. So for example, people who have an anxious attachment style, the wound here is fear of abandonment. They're hyper vigilant to their partner abandoning them, or to any slight change in their partner's feelings towards them. And it can be even tiny things like their partner taking a longer time to answer a text message, or not picking up a phone call. And they tend to people with anxious attachment style to tend to be people pleasers, and they tend to their partner's needs. They are very sensitive to their partner's needs, to any change in their mood, and they suppress their own needs. They tend to get completely enmeshed with the partner. They
Mhm.
also need a lot of reassurance from their partner. So this is why they attract each other. So avoidant people, they tend to not want closeness and avoid closeness, while the anxious attachment people or individuals, they don't get enough closeness. So
Okay.
the closer the anxious person, or the person with anxious attachment style, the closer they get to the avoidant, the more the avoidant pulls back. And this is what happens. This takes me back to the example that I was talking about. This takes me back to my friend who attracted a girl with an anxious attachment style.
Hmm.
And then he was he was seeking my advice because he was telling me that she keeps on faking breakups. And
Okay.
when he said that, I said she definitely has an anxious attachment style. And she once called him, and she actually texted him, and she said that, like, it's over and they broke up, and he didn't contact her. He didn't call, he didn't text her. It was a shock for him. That was the first time that she fakes a breakup. And then at the end of the day, it was difficult for him to get on with his work day. But he said, "Okay, she wants that. I respect her decision." And then she called at the end of the day, and she said, "Did you get my message?" And he said, "Yes." And said, "You didn't call me or text back." And he said, "Well, I read your message and I respect your decision." And she said, "What? So you're not gonna fight for me?" And I
So yeah,
laughed.
like he's always tested, like he's always there. And wouldn't this backfire though? Like, because since you're always suppressing and curbing your emotions, and because those people, they do have these emotions, but they would always suppress and curb that. Couldn't that backfire? Couldn't
Of
that like?
course. Of course, because they start they what happens is that people with attachment, with anxious attachment, they tend not to express their needs because they're afraid that their partner are not going to meet those needs. They're afraid that their partner might be unreliable. And then they start to grow or develop resentment against the partner for not tending to their needs that they don't express. And then they suddenly lash out or fake breakup, and sometimes they also fake breakup because they feel that they're not getting the enough attention that they are looking for. But then it backfires too because the relationship will eventually dissolve because the person with avoidant attachment will just not get any reaction or not have any reaction to the continuous faked breakups. So the relationship is destined to end anyways. Either the avoidant will break up or the anxious will continue to fake breakups as well. And it ends. It's destined to end until one of them
Yes.
brings the wounds that the hidden wounds to the surface, and they start to tend to them and heal them.
Like as you're talking, I'm just recalling like an old story about two mythological like monsters. So there was the monster of ice and the monster of fire, and then they had a fight. So when they had a fight, this like the heat of the fire monster melted the ice monster, and the ice monster extinguished the fire monster. So it was detrimental for both of them.
That's true. That's true. This is how it is with people with insecure attachment, and that's why the best thing to resolve this is to have self-awareness and tend to the childhood wounds and heal them, and or try to be with a person or with a partner who has a secure attachment style, because
Hmm.
studies show that being with a partner with secure attachment style will help people who or the other partner who struggles with an insecure attachment style. They will help them heal.
So it's neither fire nor ice. Like those with secure one, they are within sort of the moderate, reasonable, levels.
Yes, exactly.
And so when talking about hypnotherapy here and try to treat people with hypnotherapy, people might have these different problems and so on. Would hypnotherapy suffice, or does it have to be integrated with more conventional, more traditional kinds of treatment?
Well, hypnotherapy doesn't replace traditional therapy. It complements it, and it accelerates the effect or the results that one might get from traditional therapy. Um, but at the same time, one can choose whatever therapy that works for them. So for some people, hypnotherapy might work better than other modes of therapy or other modalities. For others, traditional therapy would work better. For some people, maybe other modalities besides hypnotherapy, like family constellation therapy, for example, or energy healing, like whatever modality of therapy or healing one can seek. It all depends on the way the person, what works for the person, and the way they react to it.
And if you don't mind, can you share with us like a case, of course, without disclosing any personal information, where hypnotherapy really played a clear role in, you know, sort of healing these wounds that a person had? A trauma, a childhood trauma.
So I had that client who approached me for an issue that she was struggling with. That she described as lack of purpose. She told me that she doesn't achieve anything throughout her day. And that caused her feelings of self-loathing, long episodes of sadness, anxiety. She hardly achieves anything, and she hardly tackles her responsibilities, even as a mother, as well as completely neglecting her career. And she took sessions with me, and during the sessions, it showed that um, she was regularly beaten up by her father as a child. Actually, not only as a child, even as an adult. She told me that her father hit her when she was in her early 20s, a week before her wedding. So that affected her deeply. She was also struggling with feelings of lack of self-worth because as a child, she used to do her best in studies, and she was even an A student. Like she used to get like um, uh, 80s or like high 80s, almost 90s. And when she goes home with a report card, she was always scolded for not getting higher grades. So whatever she did, she was always made to feel that it's not enough. She's not good enough. Also in school, she went through she struggled with bullying because yes, she was in an international school. It was one of the best schools in the city where she lived, but the majority of nationalities in that school belonged to a certain ethnic group, and she was not one of those. Like she didn't belong to that ethnic group. That was the majority. So in the sessions, one of the scenes that showed up was when she was, I think, in grade 4, and the teacher was grouping the students to do a certain activity together, and she put her in a group with that other student who belonged to the ethnic majority, and then the other student before the class and before the teacher, she said, "No, I'm not going to work with this." I refused to work with her, and I even I'd rather do the task on my own than to work with this girl. And it was so humiliating, and she felt rejected, even though the teacher like stood up for the girl, but the damage was done already. So that made her feel like having a lack of purpose, and she didn't want to do anything with her life. So after the sessions, after bringing all that to the surface and looking at those wounds and interpreting how her mind, what beliefs, what emotions came up because of the traumas that she went through, everything was resolved. I remember that after like a week or after a couple of weeks of after we finished the protocol, after we finished all the sessions that she took with me, and I contacted her to check on her. She said, I'm all done. Like there are no more two people fighting inside of me." And that was really rewarding. And now she embarked on a new journey with her career, and even her relationship with her husband is has improved a lot.
Yeah, that's great to hear. But as you were talking, you talked about her being, uh, like she was subject to physical abuse by her father. And we have different kinds of bullying. We have physical, verbal, cyberbullying, and so on. Which one would have the most immense and detrimental effect on people in childhood? Is it the physical one? Is it the verbal one? Is it like the psychological one? social bullying. So when people would try to marginalize you, shun you, like always exclude you. And now we have cyberbullying as well in this day and age. Which one do you think has the most detrimental and immense effect on children?
All of them are detrimental, but I think that the wounds that last longer and are more complex to heal are the ones that come as a result of an unresolved trauma that happened to us as a result of our relationship with our parents. So whether it be physical or emotional or verbal abuse, regardless of what kind of abuse we're exposed to as children, it's our relationship with our parents that affects us the most. Because even if a child is exposed to bullying at school, if they have a strong support system at home, they'll be able to overcome that. But what happens is that usually children who are bullied at school, they usually are bullied at home too. And I think I referred to that last time when I said that sometimes some parents are are a bully, or and sometimes siblings too, like older siblings. So the thing is, when we are exposed to a trauma and we have a wound as a result of that trauma, we tend to go to the world and attract the same wound or the same situation, just different faces. So we continue to attract the same situation again and again, and that is somehow an invitation for us to heal that wound. Whether we accept the invitation or not, that it depends. If we don't and we ignore the lesson, then it will be repeated again. It will come back.
And sometimes looks may deceive. So sometimes the bully is actually the prey, not the predator, because he is just reflecting what he sees at home. So his older sibling or his father bullies him at home, so he bullies younger children at school. Um,
That's true. Bullies are hurt too. And there is a saying, hurt people. And that is, yeah, that is absolutely true.
yeah, so it's a multi-dimensional picture actually. So you shouldn't just look at the facade, but you need to look, delve deeper, go deeper into the crypts of this human structure. And humans are definitely very complicated creatures. So if I have a childhood trauma and there's a pattern here, where do I start? So, okay, today I say, okay, yes, I admit I do have a trauma. I do have a childhood trauma or shock. Where do I start?
You
Thank you.
start by bringing this to the surface. So the first step of healing is to confess, to confess that you do have a wound and you have something that you have to resolve, and then seek help. The second step is to seek help. So people can seek therapy. They don't have to go through this alone. There's a lot of help. They can seek therapy. They can choose whatever therapy modality that works for them or therapy method that works for them. They can read books. They can follow therapists online. There are a lot of resources online. They can follow therapists who educate people about the issue that they struggle with. So there are a lot of things that they can do.
Okay, so usually when couples have problems, they sometimes would resort to therapy or group therapy. And maybe you and I had a discussion just before we started recording this interview. So as they always say, it takes two to tango. So, to what extent does science tell us today that this is true? To what extent that how important is the partner's role in healing my wound as well? So, would it suffice if I just try to treat my wound alone, or does my partner play a pivotal role? Are they just a catalyst, or are they like co-founders? Are they like, are we in some kind of an eternal bond here?
So first off, um, you cannot hold your partner responsible for healing. One cannot hold their partner responsible for healing their wound. So part of self-awareness is to own up to one's wounds, and that the person who struggled with a trauma as a child, and now as an adult, he knows that he has wounds as a result of that trauma, to own up to those wounds. So those are my wounds, and I'm responsible for healing them. And as a result of those wounds, our mind or our brain adopts survival mechanisms, and we also discussed this last time. And then there when your partner say or does something that triggers that wound, it activates that survival mechanism. So one should own up to their own wounds. However, having said that, this doesn't mean that our partner is not responsible for our happiness or well-being. So those are two different issues. So whether we're responsible for our wounds, we are completely responsible for our wounds. Our partners can be there for us to support us through our healing journey. And they should be aware of our wounds, and we should be aware of their wounds as well.
So again, happiness does not only come from within. You're saying that your partner or the external factors play a role as well.
So, according to studies now, if we talk about happiness, because there is actually there is a book that I'm reading now that brought up a lot of studies, multiple studies that were done about that. And one of the things that the book educates or teaches people is that codependency is a myth. So the lie that we were fed, that we are responsible for our happiness, or rather that our partner is not responsible for our happiness or for our well-being, that is not true. And studies prove that. So there was that study where they brought a group of women. Neuroscientists held that study on a group of women, and they connected their brains to MRI technology. And they told those women that we are going to expose you to an experience where we are going to put you under mild stress. And they told them that they're going to expose them to a mild electric shock. Now, there is a part in our mind that lights up when we are under stress. It's called the hypothalamus. And when they conducted the study, looking at the scan of the brains of those women, they found that the hypothalamus lit up normal. And then they conducted the study again on those women, and this time they had those women hold the hand of a stranger while being exposed to the electric shock. Surprisingly, they found that the part of the brain that was supposed to light up, the amount of how much that part of the brain lit up dropped. Then they held the study one more time, and they had those women hold the hands of their husbands
Mm-hmm.
while being exposed to the electric shock. And they found that the amount of light produced in that part of the brain drastically dropped. And women who reported that they have a satisfying relationship with their husbands, they were the ones who had the most amount of drop in the in that region of the
Okay.
brain. So this proves that our partners are responsible for our happiness and well-being. Another study that was conducted in the University of Toronto by neuroscientists as well proved that partners or people who have high blood pressure, that being in the proximity of their partners, if they are in a relationship where they are satisfied uh, or happy with their partners, that this might lead to their blood pressure to drop or to lower. While those who are not satisfied in their relationship with their partners, being in the proximity of their partners will lead to their blood pressure to go higher. So it is not true that our partners are not responsible for our happiness. They are not only responsible for our happiness, but also responsible for our physical and emotional well being. So basically, when we choose a partner, we're not just choosing someone who are going to be with us or accompany us in our life journey. We're basically choosing someone who's going to be responsible for our well-being and regulating our nervous system.
Absolutely. And last but not least, what is the role of society and the older generations towards younger people? Because we've seen that child trauma would stay with us forever if we don't try to treat it and heal it. Again, in some societies, there is this stigma, there is this stereotype about someone being treated for some kind of mental illness. How can we overcome that? Like, how can we encourage the society to be more accepting and more open to this kind of treatment? Especially something like hypnotherapy that is surrounded by all of these, like misconceptions.
Raising awareness is very important. So the more people like you and me speak about different types and different modalities of therapies or healing, and uncovering or rather breaking the myth around each of them, the more we raise awareness, the better. Uh, the more people talk about it and bring things to the surface, the better. Something else is that people should people should understand that, or people should know that our mind is, as you mentioned before, and remember that that's what you mentioned in at the end of the episode, that our mind is just like any body part. If you're sick, if you have cold, you seek a doctor. Then if you have an emotional issue, why can't you seek a professional? It's the same. There's no difference. And the good thing about that is that people are starting, therapists are talking about it more. There are a lot of YouTube videos out there, a lot of therapists out there who are educating people and raising awareness. So it does take time because change takes time. And our mind, as one of the things that I studied in hypnotherapy as well, is that our mind goes back to what is familiar. It doesn't matter if what is familiar is good or bad for us. So but again, also our mind learns by repetition. So the more we keep on talking about that, the more we keep on raising awareness, things will change. Change will happen slowly but surely.
Sincerely hope so. We sincerely hope so, Don.
Yeah.
Thank you very much again for being with us and for sharing all of these valuable pieces of information. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Thank you for inviting me. It was a
The
pleasure.
pleasure is mutual. Thank you. So, dear viewers, like, why is it not a shame for you to undergo a surgery? But surgery would deal with the physical part of our body. How about the mind? Mind is not a tangible part of your body. So you cannot really use, like the forceps, the scalpel, you cannot dissect it physically. But something like hypnosis is a way to dissect this mind and to see where the problem is. And sometimes you need to, remove or sometimes even amputate some parts if necessary. And just like any surgeon, like there are different specialties, and same thing for hypnotherapy as well. So it is really about time in the 21st century that we get rid of this ridiculous, really, stereotype that we have. Because the more we advance, the more important the role of the mind becomes in the human life. In primitive societies, physical strength and physical power and physical well-being was the most important. But with modern technology and so on, and with the daily grind, your mental stability and your mind really is the boss. So let's really give it, the proper attention and the proper care it deserves so that we can all live a healthy life in the modern age. Dear viewers, until we meet again, I hope you have a very pleasant time. Thanks for watching.